We're going to look at solving absolute value equations today. So as a reminder, an absolute value equation is when the variable is inside the absolute value marks. Looking back at absolute values in general, right, if you take the absolute value of 3, we get 3. If we take the absolute value of negative 3, we get 3. So let's extend that thinking a little bit farther. If we know that we can put something into absolute value marks and get out the result of 3, then we have to be thinking about what we can put in. And in this particular case, there's two different numbers that we can put in. We can put both 3 and negative 3 in. So when we look at the absolute value of x is equal to 10, we're looking for the options for x that could make this true. So if we were to put 10 in, right, the absolute value of 10 is in fact 10. So 10 is a solution. But if we also put negative 10 in, we also get 10. So negative 10 is the solution. So x is equal to both 10 and negative 10. In many absolute value equations, we're going to have two answers. But remember, many, not all. So let's actually take a look at the steps that we're going to need to solve an absolute value equation. We'll use this equation as an example to go through the process. So the first step is we're going to look at getting rid of everything outside the absolute value marks. Absolute value marks also act like parentheses. So in SADMAP, when we're solving, anything inside the parentheses will go last. Likewise, anything inside the absolute value marks will go last. So in this particular problem, the first thing we're going to get rid of is this negative 7. We'll do that by adding 7 to both sides. Very similar to every other kind of problem that we've done. So now we have the absolute value of x plus 3 is equal to 11. The next step, we're going to check to see whether or not this is even possible. So in this particular situation, we have x plus 3 is equal to a positive 11. That means we're looking to take the absolute value of something, we don't know what, and then come out with 11, which in this particular case is perfectly reasonable. There are times when you might have a negative 11 as your answer. So the question would sort of be asking, what could you put inside an absolute value marks where after you take the absolute value of it, ends up being negative 11? If that's the case, then there is no answer. It's an impossibility. You couldn't take the absolute value of anything and get a negative answer. So there are the occasional times where you're going to have no solution answer. But in this particular case, because the answer is positive, we can continue on. It's at this point that the problem becomes a little bit different. So what we realize is that whatever's inside that absolute value mark, right, in this case the x plus 3, we're looking for something that when you take the absolute value of it, it ends up becoming 11. So what could we put in here? Well, we could put in negative 11 or we could put in 11. So that x plus 3 ends up being 11. So we're going to split this into two equations. The first is that we're looking for what kind of number of x would make that x plus 3 equal an 11. And then the other thing that we're going to look for is what would make that x plus 3 into negative 11. Now that we have two equations, we can solve each one independently, and we'll get two different answers. So we're going to find out that x is equal to 8, and then we're going to find out that x is equal to negative 14. Just like the first problem that we did, we come up with two answers. If we go ahead and try that back in, right, if we try 8 back into the equation, we see that 8 plus 3 is 11. The absolute value of 11 minus is 11, okay, then minus 7, we get 4. Now if we try the negative 14 in, we get negative 14 plus 3, which is negative 11. Negative 11, the absolute value of that is 11. 11 minus 7 is 4. Check. So those are the steps. The only thing that you have to watch out for is if you have an absolute value of something equal to a negative number, right? At that point, you would have a no solution. Careful, right? If you have the absolute value of x minus 6 is equal to negative 2, that's going to be okay. We're not going to look and check to see whether it's possible until after. That negative 2 really doesn't matter right now. We're going to wait till after we get rid of everything outside the absolute value marks. The absolute value of x is equal to positive 4. In this particular case, that's going to be okay. It's going to work. We can go ahead and take a look at this. We're going to split that again. So we're looking for what's ever inside, which in this case is pretty simple, just x, right? Well, that could be positive 4. And then the other option, whatever's on the inside, could also be negative 4. So now you know what time it is, right? It's time for the practice problems. So go ahead. There's just 3 of them today. Try these, stop it, and come back. Okay, so the first practice problem. We're going to go ahead and take a look at this. There's nothing outside the absolute value marks in this one. So we're going to skip right to the second step and check to see whether that's a positive number. It is. So we're good to go ahead with this problem. Moving right to step 3, right? We're going to split it into 2. So we're looking for numbers that when you do x plus 2, it will end up being 6. And we're looking for the number that when you do x plus 2 will end up being negative 6. We'll solve each of these individually. We get x is equal to 4. We also get x is equal to negative 8. We could check that. 4 plus 2, 6. The absolute value of 6 is 6. Negative 8 plus 2, the absolute value of that, negative 6, would then be positive 6. It also works. Next question, right? We will go ahead and look at what's outside. It's a negative 3. So this is negative 3 times the absolute value of x. So we'll divide both sides by negative 3. This will cancel out. We have the absolute value of 3. The absolute value of x is negative 3. Skip right to 2, step 2, and we realize that because this is a negative 3, there's no answer that we could put in here that would get us a negative solution. So this is a no solution problem. We're done. Last problem. We're going to take a look at this one. We have 1/2 x minus 4 is equal to 18, and we're going to get rid of everything on the outside. So to get rid of 1/2, we could divide by 1/2 or multiply by its reciprocal, much preferred. We have 18 times 2, which is 36. We're going to check to make sure it's positive. It is, so we're good to keep going. Now we'll do our split. X minus 4 will be positive 36, and then x minus 4 will be negative 36. We'll solve each one of those individually. Yes, we're almost done. Now be careful when you do this one, right? It's a negative and a positive, so we'll subtract the 2. We get negative 32. So again, 2 solutions here, both 40 and negative 32. Okay, one last question, right? Before we go, think about this before you come to class tomorrow. With the absolute value problems, we saw that there was a way to get 2 solutions. We also saw that there was a way to get no solutions. So my final question for you is there any other possibility for absolute value equations? Is there any other kinds of solutions where you might get something other than 2 solutions out or 0 solutions?